Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to put it all together. We're going to look at all the different types of notation we've talked about so far. So on the very left, we have an inequality where -1 is less than or equal to y is less than 4. So our two numbers in question are -1 and 4. We need to graph the solution, in which case we're going to just say y is between these two values. We need to figure out which ones they are. Well, we know one side is -1 and the other side is 4. And then from there, we need to figure out, okay, is y between the two values or on the outermost sides, and is there a union? Clearly, this is an intersection graph where y is in the middle, and we have a closed dot on the left and an open dot on the right at 4. You could also write this as a bracket on the left and a parenthesis on the right. That would also be fine. You will see both notations. And then the values that are true are for y are between -1 and 4. In interval notation, that would be a open bracket -1, comma, 4, close parenthesis. Now let's look at the next row. We have m is less than or equal to 6, or m is greater than or equal to 11. This one does indeed have a gap in between, so we're going to put 6 over here and 11 to the right of that. So I've marked my two values that are in question, 6 and 11. Now we have to figure out what is true of those inequalities. Well, m is less than or equal to 6, meaning I'm going to go ahead and use a bracket this time instead of a closed dot, but you could use either one. Opening to the left, notice that I am pointing in the direction or going in the direction of the inequality symbol over here. The inequality is pointing to the left, so is my arrow on my graph. And also m is greater than or equal to 11, so I'll also have a bracket opening to the right, and my arrow of true values will be going to the right as well. So there is a gap in between those two inequalities on the graph, which means I will use a union to unite the two intervals. My interval notation for this will be -∞ to 6, close bracket, union, open bracket, 11 to infinity. Next one on the row here is r is less than -9, or r is greater than or equal to 0.5. Now let's go ahead and just move up a little bit. This one is similar to the previous one. It's an or inequality, and so there will be, again, a gap, most likely, but we can check. And so I'm going to just graph it first. I'm going to list the values. So we have -9, and we have 1/2, or 0.5. I'll just keep it as 0.5. And then I need to figure out whether I need a parenthesis, open dot, or bracket, close dot. R less than -9 is a parenthesis opening to the left. R greater than or equal to 1/2 or 0.5 is going to be a bracket opening to the right. Again, there is a gap in between. And so I will have a union between the two parts. My intervals will be -∞ to -9, close parenthesis, open bracket, 1/2 or 0.5, comma, infinity, close parenthesis. Next one on the list is an intersection because it's a 3-part inequality. There's no or in between, meaning there's no gaps in the graph. So we can just list our two values, one at 2.6, that's the small value, the other one at 7.1, that's the larger value. A is between those two values, and we have no or equal to part in this. So we would just have an open parenthesis, close parenthesis on the 7.1. And the values that are true of A are between 2.6 and 7.1. So my interval will be open parenthesis 2.6, comma 7.1. Now I could have also written, and close parenthesis. I could have also written this as two open dots, one at 2.6 and the other one at 7.1. In fact, I'm just going to leave it that way, but I just want you to be comfortable with both notations. I know I keep saying that, but that's really important. Now notice here on the next graph, we have an interval from -3 with an open bracket to 2 with a closed parenthesis. This is, I'm just going to go ahead and list the interval notation for that. Open bracket, -3, comma, 2, close parenthesis. Notice that I just go from left to right, and I just drop those brackets and parentheses down in the order they show up. For the symbols, though, with the inequalities, we would need one inequality because the values are true between, and I'm just going to go with x because that's the one we're used to. X is between -3 and 2. So I can write this as a three-part or tripartite inequality. There will be a inequality on the left, less than or equal to x. And on the right, it will just be a less than. Now remember, if you want to list these from smallest to largest, you always have the arrows pointing to the left because that's the small side, and the big side is on the right. So I will have -3 is less than or equal to x is less than 2. That is a true statement, but it also reads nicely, and it is in the order of the number line. This next one has a gap in between, just like before, so I know this will be a union type question or an or inequality. So I'm also going to list an or on the symbols column. This one has a gap between -5 and -2. Notice that it's true greater than -2, and it is true less than -5. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can write that down. If x is less than -5, that would be a true statement right there. Notice I'm writing this on the actual graph part so that I can keep track of it. It also looks like x is greater than -2, so that's also critical to note, and I'm writing this here before I write it over under the symbols. Just me, you don't have to do it that way. So x is less than -5 or x is greater than -2. Now for interval notation, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all my extra notes here, just so I can write something else there. For interval notation, I need to think about the trends on my true values of x. So that would be from -infinity to -5, close parenthesis, union, open parenthesis, -2 to infinity. Next one, we're given the interval notation and we have to work our way backwards. So I'm most comfortable with graphing the intervals, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. I'm going to notice that -infinity is included, so that's important. All the way up to 3.8. I know there is a gap because of the union here, so I'm going to write a gap in my graph. And from 7 to infinity, there's something graphed, so I'm going to go ahead and put my open parenthesis at 7, opening to the right. I'm also going to put a bracket at 3.8, opening to the left, and that is my graph. Over here on the right is positive infinity. The next part is writing this in symbol notation. So the symbols are the inequality part. So my symbols would be x is less than or equal to 3.8 and x is greater than 7. I'm writing that above my graph first before I translate it over here to the symbols section. Since I have a union, I know I'm also going to have an OR over here under symbols. So now I'll just list my intervals from smallest to largest. X is less than or equal to 3.8, and X is greater than 7. Okay, so the last one is just a interval with no breaks in it. So I'll go ahead and find the two endpoints. -15 and +22 are my endpoints. We're not including the endpoints. So the interval that is true for X is between -15 and 22. That means that I have a 3-part inequality for my symbols section. X is between -15 and 22. Notice my inequalities again are pointing toward the small side, the small values, and they're listed from smallest to largest with X in between. I hope you find this helpful.